it will change you, and it will definitely change you as a person. That's basically the meaning of transition. Hey you guys, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are new here, my name is Manka Ngunjiri, and on this channel we explore the Christian faith and lifestyle. So if you're up for such content, please consider subscribing down below and joining this amazing family that God is building here on YouTube. So guys, I'm so glad that you clicked on this video, because the message that God has led me to share with you in this video is something that I'm actually actively going through, and I feel like if I share it, then more is going to sink in. The tendency of sharing things is that when you talk about it, you process it better and it sinks in you better. So as I am sharing this video, it's not just for you guys, it's actually more for me. So today's video, we're going to talk about transition. We're going to be talking about transitioning. How am I actively going through transition in my life? I recently finished university. Nimemalizana na 844, nimenawa mikono. In as much as it brings so much joy and happiness to be done with school, it also brings an aspect of like a little bit of apprehension, because I'm like, now I'm supposed to start my life independent officially. I should find a job. I should start thinking about my life now properly, and it brings a little bit of apprehension and tension, because you're like, now what do I do with my life? What career path will I choose? Will I actually go with what I studied for in university, or will I change? And I've been asking God, like, what do I do? What do I do? And he led me to study about transition. Possibly you're watching this and you're also going through a season of transition. The season of transition is really very hard and very difficult to navigate through. I love the fact that God is concerned with every point and every single thing we go through in life. He's so concerned with every point of our life, to the point that he always gives us information and always teaches us on how we can go through the various aspects and various seasons of our life. I'm going to start off this video by defining the word transition. What is transition? According to Google, transition is the process or period of changing from one state condition to another. And I want you to note two things from this definition. Number one, transition involves transformation. That is, there will be a change in form. When you go through a transition, you are going through a change from one form or one state to another state. For example, we're going to use an African example. In the African tradition, to be able to signify that a man has become an adult, they have to go through transition, that rite of passage. The change that happens in them is not only just a mental thing, but also happened physically. And in those days, in the past days, their responsibilities even changed. Their cultures where the kids, like the boys, were given charge of taking care of sheep and stuff like that. But the moment they went through that rite of passage, their responsibility changed from being shepherds or like livestock keepers to becoming maybe warriors. So you see there, they will be going through a season of transition where they are going to change. Like their responsibilities are changed, their physical conditions are changed, like their mental conditions are changed, so that they go through a transition. When you go through a season of transition, you'll experience change in your life, and these changes may be physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, or a combination of all, or a couple, or a number of them. The other point I want you to notice, to realize and to note about transition, is that transition is a function of time. That is, it involves a period of time, or it takes time for it to occur. There are events that happen in the life of a person that maybe look drastic or like significant, like instant, but when you move from that one point to the other, even if the event is instant, it takes time for you to adjust and to come into agreement with that change. And God takes us through seasons of transition, especially when He's going to lift us or going to elevate us. When God wants to elevate you, you will experience a lot of changes in your life and a lot of transition, and you go through a season of transition. And there, in that season, is when He is bringing us to a better form of ourselves, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and in all these areas, so that we may be able to handle the lifting and the elevation that He's bringing us to. And going through this transition actually is not easy. It comes with a lot of challenges, and normally, as the nature of humanity, we don't want to go through change. We don't like change. We just want to remain as we are. But that's not the will of God. The will of God is that He may take us from level to the other, one level to the next. It actually goes against our nature. That's where the challenging part of transition comes in, where we want to be comfortable, we want to be complacent, but that is not the will of God. He wants us to bring us from glory to glory. I'm not gonna lie, this period where I've been home, just applying for jobs and just trying to figure out my life after uni, sometimes you feel useless. And I feel guilty about it, and I feel bad. And going through that is not easy. It's not been easy, and it's not easy to go through seasons of transition. But even if it's not easy, it does not mean it's impossible to go through, especially with God. When you go through seasons of transition with God, you are not alone. So there is somewhere you can go and offload and offload your frustrations and everything. So it makes things easier, but it's still challenging. And in order to go through successful transition, you have to understand what transition is and its aspects. And I'm going to share with you the key aspects of transition based on the story of one man who I believe went through a lot of transition. And this man is Abraham. And we know the story of Abraham. Starting from the pivotal point that I want us to focus on is from the book of Genesis chapter 12, where God called Abraham. And at that time he was called Abram. And God had called him from his land. He was living with his dad in was it Haran? Yes, he was living in Haran with his dad, and God called him to move to Canaan, right? And that's a whole transition right there. And he was supposed to take his family, his wife, his things, everything he owned, and move out of his father's house and go to a land that God had promised him. Yeah, a land that he had never seen before, and he had never stepped on before. That's crazy faith Abraham had there. Through the story of Abraham, there are some things we can learn about transition, and I'm going to share with you. There are about 6 aspects we can learn about transition from the story of Abraham. The first key aspect you need to learn and to understand about transition is that it takes time to go through transition. From the story of Abraham, we know that God called him to move from Haran to Canaan, right? But when you read that story, you will understand that it took time for Abraham to move from Haran to Canaan, because there was a distant aspect. Whenever you go through a transition in your life, whatever transition it may look like, in order for you to get to that final state that you want to get to, it will take time. It may take a long time, or it may take a short time. So you have to be willing to go through that time. You have to be willing to use that time to go through that transition, however long or however short it may take. Number 2, the second aspect that we should learn about transition, it is a function of hope. What enables someone to go through transition is the hope of a better thing laying ahead of them. For you to be able to go through transition successfully and smoothly, you have to be able to understand and to know that there is something better on the other side. Abraham had hope of what God had in store for him, and what God had promised him. God had given him a promise that he will go to Canaan, right? And Abraham had promises that God will help him and will make him get there. That was what enabled him to go through that season of transition from Haran to Canaan. In order to go through transitions successfully, we have to have hope. We have to have hope. You have to hold fast to hope so as to walk and to get through transitions. You have to hold on to hope that what is laying ahead of me is actually better than what I have come from. The third aspect of transition that you need to understand in order to be successful, to successfully go through transition, that it is a test of faith. It is a test of your faith. In the season of transition, Abraham's faith was tested, whether he really believed that God will deliver his promises, especially the one on the descendants as many as the stars. The guy Abraham, when God made this promise to him, Abraham was 75 years old. That was when his promise was made. And Sarah was also quite old. I think she had already even passed the age where scientifically is proved for successful childbirth. But Abraham had to hold on to faith that the promise of God will come to pass. It was a test on his faith. In the season of transition, you'll be tested on whether you truly believe that God will be able to bring that which you see ahead of you. And in that test of faith, you are being refined. In transition, things that aren't fit to go with you on the other side, those things are being removed slowly by slowly. These things that are being removed, they are things that are going to either slow you down, or they're going to cause you to abort or to mishandle or not be a good steward over that which God has in store for you. And in that test, God refines you and brings you to the image and to the person that which will be faithful to hold and to carry that which God already has in store for you in your future, that which God has in store for you at the end of that transition. When Abraham left Haran, he didn't just left with his own family, like that is his wife and his servants and his things. He left also with the son of his brother Lot, his nephew. And while they were living together, there was commotion and issues between them. Not Abraham and Lot specifically, but between the servants. Lot made the decision that for peace to prevail, we need to separate. Abraham said, okay, let's do it. And they went towards a hill, a certain hill, and they overlooked the whole land. And Abraham was like, told Lot, you choose the side you want to go to. If you choose that side, I'll go the completely opposite side. And Lot, being a capitalist and a business person, he said, I will go to this side that had more pasture, that looked greener and better. And that side was the side of Sodom and Gomorrah. And he left, took his stuff, took his wife, took his kids, took his servants, everything that he owned, and went towards that side. And Abraham took the complete opposite side, the side that was dry, the side that didn't look fruitful enough. It didn't look like a place that a human being with the right senses would live. But Abraham had already made a promise that if you go this side, I'll go the complete opposite side. So he went together with his things. And that was the pruning that he went through. When that separation happened, Abraham actually thrived in that land that he had chosen and in that side that he had chosen. Even if it did not look lucrative enough, Abraham still thrived because he had God in him and he had the promise of God in him. The fifth aspect that we should learn about transition and that will help us to go through transition successfully is that transitions changes your identity. When you go through transition, your identity will shift. There will be a shift in your identity. Abram, when God called him, his name was Abram, Abram, Abram. But as he moved towards Canaan and continued to build his relationship with God during that transition, God changed his name from Abram to Abraham, and not just his name but also the name of his wife, from Sarai to Sarah. So the aspect of going through transition is it will change you. It will change who you are. It will change your thoughts. It will change your perspective of life, and it will definitely change you as a person. That's basically the meaning of transition. It is a season where you go through change, and this change will not only just be in the position or in the physical thing manifestation, but also your identity, the way you view life, and like the perspectives you carry. They will also change. And when you go through transitions with God and your identity changes on the things you believe in and your perspective changes, it will change to become now more in alignment with God. As Abram's name changed to Abraham, he changed his name because he was becoming now aligned with what God had in store for him. The sixth and final aspect that I want us to learn about transitions makes you grow in intimacy with God. Abram and Abraham were two different people in the point of Abraham walked closer in intimacy with God than Abram when he left Haran. So when you go through seasons of transition, especially when you go through transitions with Jesus, is that you grow in intimacy with him. You grow closer to him. There are some things that will also happen in your life that will indicate and show your growth and your intimacy with the Lord. For example, in Abraham's story, what signified and showed the difference and the intimacy that had grown between him and God is the covenant that he made with God while in that season of transition. while he was waiting for his Isaac, he made a covenant. He got into covenant with God. When you go through transition, you will also realize that there are some things you'll leave, there are some things you'll sacrifice, there are some things you will do for the sake of Jesus, for the sake of your relationship with Jesus, that you will grow closer in intimacy with him, and it will also show physical manifestation of your growth in intimacy with Jesus. Going through transitions is not a bad thing. First of all, going through change is not a bad thing. Change is needed. We need to go through change. Going through change is not easy. And as much as we need to go through change, it will not be easy. But with Christ, with Jesus in the mix, nothing is impossible. With Jesus, we can do all things, and we can be able to go through the seasons of transition easily. So I wanted to make this video to make us understand the transitions. It is important to go through change, because if we remain stagnant, there are some things we'll not access, there are some things we'll not get. But when we surrender ourselves and go through transition and go through the change, it will bring much better fruits. It may be hard, yes, it may be challenging, but the end result is always better. Even if it's not easy, persevere and endure through it, because through it you will be able to develop so much greater things, so much better things. So I hope this blesses you, and that's the end of today's video. I hope you've been blessed. I hope you've learned a thing or two, and if you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe down below, and join the family. We are on the road to 500 subscribers. So you guys, you partner together to to make this dream come true. Let's grow together and grow closer to Jesus through this channel. God bless you, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Bye. I've lost my train of thought. Jesus, oh God.